Welcome back to the Show Me Show for episode 24. I can't believe we're already at 24, but today is the college football preview show. We have all kinds of different predictions and fun ways to capture these predictions, including a player fantasy draft that me and Cam are going to be doing. So make sure you stick around for that and full SEC preview, as well as some betting locks on team over-under totals for the year, as well as every single Power 5 conference prediction. And then we have some other news at the end of the show, as well as a Nick Adams follow-up update from last week's show if you listened to that. So make sure you stay tuned for that fun segment at the end. And let's get into it for episode 24.
3, 2, 1.
Hello and welcome to the Show Me Show for episode 24. This episode is sponsored by the sweet taste of Dr. Pepper. Free ad once again. So good though. Today is the college football preview show. So this might be the most I've prepared, especially for a show. So we got a lot of stuff, including the college football playoff, 4 teams, predictions, and obviously the winner, Heisman finalists, and then we also have teams that we think will be surprisingly good, teams we think that will disappoint the public. We have Power 5 conference predictions, including a full SEC breakdown, and the full standings of that. We have betting locks for team win totals, over-unders. So like Vegas, for example, will set Alabama's at 10.5. We have a lock for if it's over. All the teams that we have are ones that we think will not miss. And then we also have fantasy draft of players. So me and Cam will be kind of making a fantasy team in a draft style to just preview the best players in the country this year and players to look out for. So kind of a fun way of doing that. And I guess we can get right into it. That'd probably be less confusing. Oh, man. I get the first overall pick in the fantasy draft. And I'm going to go with a player that I think is the most electric at the position, and it's the biggest difference between 1 and 2. So I'm going to take a wide receiver, number 1 overall out of Ohio State, Jackson Smith-Njigba. He's my number 1 pick. We saw him in the Rose Bowl last year whenever, Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, when they both weren't there, they had, skipped to go to the draft. And Jackson Smith-Njigba stepped up big time in that game. He had like 300 receiving yards. I think that's just a preview of what him and C.J. Stroud are going to do this year at Ohio State. So.
Okay, well, I'll just take Bryce Young then. I don't think I need to really say that much else. He was the Heisman winner last year. Current cover of College Football Revamped, the NCAA knockoff video game thing. And he plays for the best team. He literally lives for the moment, as we saw last year. He's skin and bones and somehow doesn't get hurt. And he did that last year, and it's just respectable. Monster arm and just really elusive on the ground, and he's super fun to watch. I think he's the most fun quarterback to watch right now in college football, which is saying a lot because he literally just kind of throws from the pocket most of the time. So, and in college, you're kind of usually looking at guys that are rolling around. But, yeah, I'll take Bryce Young.
You know how big of a fan of Bryce Young I am. I think he's just one of the most electric players. But with that being said, there's also a player that's very similar caliber at the same position that I said I'd be fine with if you took Bryce Young, and that would be the teammate of the guy I just drafted, C.J. Stroud, at quarterback. So I'll go ahead and take him so I can match up with Bryce Young kind of there. And I think we kind of just I ran through why I'm taking him with Jackson Smith-Njigba. So having them on the same fantasy team is going to be fun.
I guess I might move around here. I also might not. Get 3 quarterbacks here, and I like every single one on my list. But I'm gonna go ahead and take Braylon Allen from Wisconsin at the running back position. Because I like him. I think maybe he's probably my favorite. It's just like a bias thing. And then whoever you take at running back, I also have some other ones that I think I can take.
Well, I'm gonna flip sides of the ball here on this pick. I'm gonna go to the defensive side and take maybe the best player in college football, arguably, out of Alabama, Will Anderson at the edge rusher position. He's been talked about as potentially the greatest player that Nick Saban has brought to Alabama ever. And when you have that high of praise, I think you're worthy of a top pick in the college football fantasy draft. So I'm going to go ahead and take him and lock up a anchor on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, I would agree. I think he's the best player in football in college. And I think if he would have been in the draft this past year, he would have been taken ahead of Trayvon Walker for Jacksonville. He probably would have been the number 1 pick even this past year, and he'll definitely be the number 1 pick next year as long as he doesn't tear his ACL.
I wouldn't say he's going to do that because you have C.J. Stroud and Bryce Young entering the draft, and typically quarterbacks
That's true,
will
but
get taken higher.
Sometimes they don't, because sometimes you look at sometimes in the past like the Texans and the Browns even, Myles Garrett was the best player and Clowney were the best players, and they were just so dominant in college. They're just like, we really have no choice but to take these guys. So, it worked out for the Browns. Not as much so for the Texans, but Myles Garrett is literally probably the best defensive end in football in the world, pretty much, considering college and NFL. So,
Other than Aaron Donald, anyway, of course.
Yeah, well, he plays defensive tackle most of the time, though. So I'm sticking on offense because defense is defense. I'm gonna take Bijan Robinson from Texas, another running back. He is. We'll talk about our Heisman top 3 later, but he's in mine. So I think he might be Texas's only real shot of having a monster season. So we'll see. But yeah, I really like Bijan. He's a stud. So that's who I'm taking here. Although Texas, I don't think is back. So sorry.
That's a great deal. That was a great pick. But the deal that he just signed with Mustard for Bijan Mustard instead of Dijon, the NIL deal that he signed, that was pretty cool. There's been some cool NIL deals going down recently, and his is one of them. He was actually number 1 I had on my power rankings for running backs, so that was a good pick because I might have taken him next. But now I'm going to stay on the defensive side of the ball, but move down the line to basically a Jordan Davis clone, maybe a little bit better for Georgia, and that's Jalen Carter. He is, if it weren't for Will Anderson, he would probably be the best defensive player in the entire college football landscape. And he is just he's a huge human being. I forget exactly what his dimensions are, but he's 310 pounds. So he's just a big ball of muscle. He's just a huge specimen, and he's really gonna be a factor on the Georgia defensive line this year, and probably a top 5 pick in the NFL draft if I had to guess. So watching him and Will Anderson go against each other in the SEC championship this year is going to be fun.
Well, except they won't. They'll be on opposite sides of the ball, but it'll be like a good show going from one to Will Anderson to Jalen Carter. But I'm going to head back to quarterback and just take Caleb Williams. I'm probably going to take one of his receivers too. So.
Oh, thanks for telling me, because maybe now I'll take him.
Do it. I've got a couple wide receivers that I really love.
He's actually not next on my wide receiver list, so you can have him if you want. Next, I'm going to take a player. I'm going to flip back to the offensive side of the ball and take a player that it's at a position. It's Brock Bowers out of Georgia. I think he's the best tight end. Obviously, you got the Notre Dame guy, but Brock Bowers, in my opinion, I'm just a huge fan of his. He's just an electric young tight end, and he's just fun to watch. He's a big guy. He's actually kind of skinny for the tight end position, really a little bit small, but a great receiver. And I think Georgia's going to need a good pass catcher this year, and he's going to be very reliable for them. So.
Oh, yeah, he's really good. I had him on my number one tight end as well. But and you mentioned him, and since we're doing tight ends now, and I only have on my board since we only have to take one, I'm just going to take the other one here. Michael Mayer. I hate him because he goes to Notre Dame, and he is just unstoppable if the quarterback is competent enough to get him the ball, which in the past not has always been super competent. And they just I don't know how you don't throw it to him almost every 3 or 4 passes, and they just don't sometimes. And it's crazy to me. He is that good. I don't think he's as good as Brock Bowers, but I think he's a little bit more balanced than Brock Bowers because Brock Bowers is just a tremendous receiving tight end. I mean, he could practically play wide receiver. He's so fast for a tight end, and he's just big. And but Michael Mayer, he can run block actually, and he is strong as hell. But also just really great hands, and it's just not as much as I hate to say it, but they're pretty much Notre Dame and tight end as of late. So Michael Mayer is definitely the pick here for me at tight end, even though I hate him.
Yeah, I think those were clearly easily the top 2 tight ends in all of college football, and it's like them two, and then just huge gap, and then everyone else. So I'm going to wrap back around to a position I haven't taken yet, and that's running back. And there's so many good choices here, but I'm going to go Jahmyr Gibbs out of Alabama. He transferred from, I'm blanking on the school that he transferred from last year. Was it Wake Forest, maybe? I feel like it was an ACC school. And he's now with Alabama, and he's going to be inserted right into the starting lineup pretty much. Just because he's that good, he's that experienced, and anytime you're rushing behind an Alabama offensive line and have the weapons that Alabama has, they're going to have a good season. So watch out for Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a name to look out for this year.
I didn't even honestly have him on my board for running backs. I have so many if we could take a ton of running backs, I would. My flex, I think I'll take another running back there when we get to that. But for wide receiver, I'm going to go with my homeboy, Josh Downs from UNC. Future first-round pick. I love him. He is my my favorite player to watch right now on UNC. Obviously, because Sam Howell graduated. But he's the best player on the team right now for North Carolina. And I think we'll come to find that's actually saying first years this year, and I think this is the year. I'll get to it later, but that UNC actually might be decent, so we'll see. But yeah, I'm gonna take Josh Downs. He's my favorite. Not number one. I wouldn't say he's number one on the board even for right.
Was that your number one wide receiver pick, though?
That's my first one. Yeah.
Okay. All right, kind of interesting there. I mean, that's a good pick. I had him on my board, but he wasn't close to number one. Let's see what position. I'll go back to the defensive side of the ball.
Well, to be fair, I think you took number one at wide receiver.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's why I said when I took him number one, he was a clear number one above everyone. I'll go back to the defensive side of the ball and take the brother of an NFL player out on the West Coast in Oregon, Noah Sewell. He's kind of a pure linebacker. He's just the old school linebacker, big tackler, heavy hitter. He can he can do good in pass coverage, and he's kind of the anchor on Oregon's defense. And Oregon has title hopes this year, so you could see him playing a big part in the Pac-12 and the college football landscape this year.
You said we added defensive or edge rusher, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have any just like strictly edge rusher guys, but I'll get that later. I'm gonna go ahead and take a flex position, which is interesting to do this early. He's another guy I just don't really like because a few years ago he was gonna go to UNC. It was between UNC and Clemson, and UNC is literally always in recruiting battles with Clemson, so it just hurts. But he is a freaking stud as long as he doesn't get hurt. And another reason why I think Clemson is just going to be really, really good this year and back to normal. Will Shipley, I don't know if you know him, white running back who is just a beast. And not only like is he just really good, when they hand it off to him, but he's so much better like when they throw it to him. He is literally a Christian McCaffrey of college football, especially for Clemson. So I really like him. So, yeah, I'll take Will Shipley for my flex, and I guess now I'm no longer allowed to take any running backs.
I mean, I guess you could, but it wouldn't make sense, because you already got that position filled. But I'll take a running back as well. He's got kind of a cool name. I have Jameer, that's spelled really, really cool. And I'll take another cool first name, and Deuce Vaughn out of Kansas State. As Mizzou fans, we'll get to see him in week 2 of the college football season, so get ready for the Deuce Vaughn show on the Missouri defense. But he's just an electric player. He's a senior for Kansas State, so he's been there for a while now, and he's really the anchor of their offense. Like the captain, just the offense is built around him. He's a great receiving threat and obviously rushing threat, and one of the most electric running backs in football. So it's my two running backs now.
Yeah, Deuce Vaughn is going to be really a tough scene for Mizzou. We'll get to a Mizzou preview later, but they could not stop the run last year. And some people say, and I could honestly argue with them for this, that Deuce Vaughn is actually the best running back in college football. So it's just going to be a tough scene, I think. And I would not be surprised. That game is at 11 a.m. in Manhattan, Kansas. That Mizzou might get shellacked, and I'm really scared about that game. So just might be one of those things, where you wake up, first game, you just watch Lee Corso put the headgear on, and they're sending you out to the Little Apple, Manhattan, Kansas, and then it's just over for Mizzou. So I hope not, but we'll see. That is a really good pick. I'm going to move back over to receiver, and I'm going to take Jordan Addison, who is Caleb Williams going to be his number 1 receiving target. He won the Blitkenhoff last year at Pitt with Kenny Pickett, and if he would have went to the draft, he would have been probably first-round pick. So he is just a really good – he's more of a receptions guy, which is honestly, I guess that's probably why he went to USC. It seems like they always have the best reception wide receivers. Drake London, Juju Smith-Schuster, and stuff like that. Amon-Ra St. Brown, all reception guys, not exactly just take the top off the defense kind of guys, and that's what Jordan Addison is. So, or he's not a take the top off the defense kind of guy, but a reception guy. So that might be the only offense that they really have at USC. I don't really know a whole lot about USC because I kind of took a break from having to watch them as much because they just sucked, especially last year. So it'll be different. It'll be completely different though with Lincoln Riley. So yeah, but that's my pick.
Yeah, you hinted at drafting him earlier, and I had my chances to take him. But the reason I did not is because there's a guy at LSU that is also electric, Kayshon Boutte. He was a freshman last year, and he got off to a slow start but towards the end of the year, he had like an 8-game streak or something where he caught a touchdown in every single game. He was obviously the number one receiver, which as a freshman, to be a number one receiver for an SEC school is a really big accomplishment, and I think he's going to take a big step this year. The only problem with it is I don't think the LSU offense is going to be as electric as it usually is, but Kayshon Boutte is going to be the anchor of that offense. So that's my wide receiver position.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. I didn't even put him on my board just for the fact that he's a stud. Don't get me wrong. I agree with what you said. He literally was the offensive centerpiece last year. But I didn't put him on my board just because their quarterback situation is iffy. They're even though that they just got Jaden Daniels from Arizona State, if you remember that. But Jaden Daniels was, as much as we wanted him to go to Mizzou, he was had a weird year last year. How I feel about him in the SEC, the back, we'll see. And then also their running game has kind of been depleted a little bit. And also he's the number one wide receiver for LSU, which you might be like, okay, that's great, but he has to play in the SEC against some of the best defensive backs this year in the SEC. So that's might be a little bit tougher in terms of yards and touchdowns. So that's why I didn't throw him on there, but he's still a stud. And I think if one other just didn't get that, he might come open more. So yeah, but I wish we could take 3 receivers, but I am gonna pick a defensive. No, I'm sorry. I'm gonna take a kicker. I love him. He's my man. The thicker kicker, Harrison Mevis. He is my boy at Mizzou. He is one of the best kickers I think he's the best kicker in the country, but some people, not everybody thinks that, but he is fat as hell, and he makes really long kicks in really clutch situations most of the time. So, yeah, and he wears the black and gold, and so what's not to love about him? He literally eats cheeseburgers down the road at the Stadium Bar and Grill all the time. They have a thicker kicker burger. That's another example of a good NIL deal. And like I said, he's just fat. Although,
wait, is it an NIL deal or did they just make it just for fun?
I think both. But another thing, the only downside about him is that his brother Andrew Mevis, who played for Iowa State last year and was also a stud, played for the Jaguars this past year, and he missed a kick so bad that it hit like a fat Cowboys coach in the head and knocked him down, and then they just cut Andrew Mevis. So that was kind of a tough scene for his brother, but hopefully not for the thicker kicker. So that's my pick.
Yeah, that was a very popular pick. We were kind of arguing. You called dibs on him last night, and I was like, you can't do that. It's a draft. But so I debated taking him early, but I actually found a hidden gem at kicker this morning out of Michigan. I'm going to go ahead and stick at the kicker position as well. Out of Michigan, Jake Moody. He was one of the best kickers. He was the best kicker. The Lou Groza Award last year, and kicker of the year, and he was very 50 yards. Now, granted, you get outside 50 yards, he couldn't really do much, but inside 50 yards, he was almost a lock every time. So, Michigan is a good scoring offense, and Jake Moody's going to be a beast. Maybe not as much as Mevis, but
yeah. Honestly, I think Mevis would have won the Groza if he would have made that kick against Florida. I don't know if you know exactly the kick I'm talking about, but Mizzou and Florida had to go to overtime last year, and if Mevis just would have made the kick, they would not have had to go to overtime. They would have just won, and it wasn't that
we won in
crazy
overtime,
of a kick.
We?
Yeah, we did. We threw it to Daniel Parker Jr. on a 2-point conversion attempt and won it, so it was all right. But that was one kick where you're like, Mevis always makes these clutch kicks, and he missed it. So that was, I honestly think if he would have made that, he would have won the Groza. But
well, I mean,
it's neither here nor there. But
one other thing about Mevis, he was actually perfect on PATs last year. So that's a huge part, especially for college kickers, because they miss PATs like they're nothing. So,
although another kicker that I really like and I was honestly thinking that you were going to say him once you said hidden gem.
Zach Long out of Tulsa.
No,
Oh.
Noah Ruggles, Ohio State.
Okay.
He is a stud. He actually started at North Carolina, and he was horrible, and I hated him. But I still had a soft spot for him because he went to UNC. But he transferred to Ohio State and just became a god kicker. This last year, he was a really, really good kicker for Ohio State, and I think he's one of the best in the nation. And I was surprised he came back because I thought he could have easily gotten an NFL deal somewhere. Long kicks. But my next pick, I'm going to take a revolutionary pick here. Oh, wait, no. I guess we only get one defensive back pick. So I'm going to keep safe. I'm going to go with
Well, keep in mind, when you say one defensive back, you also have a flex defensive position, so you
Yeah.
could take a second defensive back if you wanted.
I'm going to go with – no, he's just too cool to pass up. I'm going to go with Jordan Battle, the guy with all the wristbands down his arm. And he's also just a stud, but just a Nick Saban masterclass defensive back. But he just has all these cool wristbands down his arm, and it's just sick. So, yeah, I'm going to take him. I think he might be my first player I've taken on defense, but he wasn't even my number one defensive back. I have other guys ahead of him, but he is just so cool that you have to take him. Like, he's a flashy football player. He is one of those guys in college football at defensive back that you know what I mean? Like, even good players in college at positions that aren't like quarterback and running back, you just don't always know them because it's college football. There's so many teams. You know who Jordan Battle is, so that's why I'm going to take him.
Yeah, he was my number one at defensive back position, but I'll take my number two at defensive back. I'll stick in that order. This is an interesting pick. This is the first non-FBS player that's going to be picked in this draft. Out of Jackson State, we just committed Travis Hunter. He's going to be a freshman, so it's kind of a risky pick taking a freshman there, but he's revolutionary. Like, people are comparing him to Darrell Revis. Like, that's how good he is. So
What the hell did you just call him?
Darrell Revis? Darrell Revis?
Yes, Darrell Revis. Who the hell is Darrell Revis?
That's how I've always said it. Darrell
Revis Island? Are you kidding me? It's Revis Island.
All right. Darrell Revis is fine too, but however you say it.
Darrell Revis.
No, Darrell. Not Darrell, Darrell.
That was I don't like that. You gotta fix that. I know
that's
it's
like
preseason for everybody, but you gotta fix that.
It's like the white man's Darrell Revis.
Yeah, no kidding.
Darrell Revis, you know. But yes, people are comparing him to him, the Jets guy. Anyone else confused like myself out there? He's the Jets guy that was good for years. People are comparing him to him, just lockdown corner. And especially him playing a bunch of FCS teams, he is just going to bully the wide receivers. So expect him to be kind of like a Sauce Gardner clone almost, where he just doesn't give up any touchdowns.
Well, he also is going to play wide receiver, I think, because he's such a good remember. I think he is. I don't know what the hell that was, but pretty sure he is going to play wide receiver. But I kind of want to make another defensive pick. I think I'm going to go. You just mentioned white Darrell Revis, and I'm going to go with the white Darrell Revis of college football. My good friend Riley Moss from Iowa, a good solid. He's probably going to be the next white cornerback in the NFL, and we haven't had one in years.
No, we've had white cornerbacks. They just haven't started games.
Yes, he's going to be a starter in the NFL, I think. Riley Moss, Iowa. He's a really good player, and he looks like a future Steeler. So,
okay,
or a future Giant, because I'm pretty sure they're the last team to start a white cornerback.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah, that would actually be a really good landing spot for him.
The Redskins started Troy Apke like last year or the year before that, and that was the first cornerback to start white cornerback to start since Jason Sehorn for the Giants. So, but yeah, he is a stud. He actually may transition to safety when he gets to the league. I don't know, but he plays corner at Iowa, and he's the best cornerback in the Big Ten. So, yeah, I'm going to take him.
Now, I have almost my entire team filled out, but I still have 2 QB spots that are open. And I have a bunch of QBs listed. So I'm going to take a guy that I am big on this year. He kind of sucked last year. He had a lot of expectations, but he transferred. He's got a new home. Spencer Rattler, South Carolina. People forget he's in South Carolina now with whatever his face is. Gus. I'm blanking on the coach's name, but it's Gus something.
It is most definitely not Gus. It is a Beamer.
Oh, Shane Beamer.
Yeah.
Okay. Maybe Gus was the old kid. But yeah, Shane Beamer. Yeah, that makes sense. I think they're going to get along really well. I think Rattler's going to succeed in the SEC. Believe it or not, I think he's going to carry South Carolina, and they're going to have their best season in a while. And he's just going to rebuild his brand because he was like a big recruit that went to Oklahoma a few years ago. And he last year really, I mean, he got benched last year. Fans were chanting for him to be benched. He was playing, so he needs a new home and a place where he can just rebuild his reputation. I think he's going to do that this year.
Yeah, I have faith in him as well. I think an SEC system might help him, especially Coach Beamer. They destroyed Carolina in the Mayo Bowl. If you remember that, when their coach had to get dunked in a thing of mayonnaise. So they had a pretty solid season for his first year. So wouldn't shock me if he turns it around. And just because, I mean, he was literally a sophomore, right? Or was he a junior? I can't remember, but thought he was a sophomore last year.
His first, well, he played 1 year there, and he played really well. That was his freshman year, redshirt freshman year. And then last year was his sophomore year, redshirt sophomore.
Okay, so he was redshirted, but 2 years ago was his first year. His first just bad-looking year, even though they still won pretty much every game. But they just looked bad. But yeah, I have faith in him as well. Fine. I hope he doesn't torch Mizzou. I'm gonna take. So we have to draft an edge rusher, and I didn't write any down, but
I'll give you I wrote 2 down.
I have a sneaky edge rusher from North Carolina that I'll take later
I also
in the draft.
have Nolan Smith as an edge rusher too, if you want to take him.
Is he? I thought.
Yeah.
He's
an outside linebacker, so I think
I have him on
kind of
my
an edge
outside
rusher.
linebackers, but I'm actually gonna take. You just took Rattler. I want to take. I like the SEC, but I'm gonna go ahead and take Jack Campbell. I'm gonna take Bumper Pool, if you know who that is. Yep. I like him more than Jack Campbell. Jack Campbell is a at Iowa, and he might actually be better than Bumper Pool, but Bumper Pool is just a sweet name for a linebacker. At Arkansas, I think he had over 100 tackles again last year, so I'm going to take him. And while he's nowhere near as good as Will Anderson, that Will Anderson, I guess he was your edge rusher pick, wasn't he? Okay. I had Will Anderson just on my outside linebacker board, but I guess he'll just be considered my outside linebacker. But yeah, Bumper Pool, beast.
I had him on I have 3 names written down for coolest names in college football, and he was one of them. So he was also a backup linebacker pick in case both of mine got picked. Mm-hmm. But Bumper Pool, I like that pick. So let's see. I have 2 receivers. I think I got 2 running backs. I need a flex. I need another QB, which I'm going to take right now. This might be a weird pick because I bet you don't have it, but he's a senior this year from Coastal Carolina, and it's Grayson McCall. He's just got a lot of swag, I feel like, for a white QB that plays in the Sun Belt Carolina school. So he's going to get drafted, not high this year, but he'll get drafted in like the 4th or 5th round probably to be a backup quarterback. We'll see him in the preseason next year. And with the Coastal Carolina team, he's the best QB in the conference for sure in the Sun Belt, the Fun Belt. And I like him. I like the Coastal Carolina colors. I like Grayson McCall. I think he's a cool guy and a great quarterback. So we'll wrap up my QB position.
I want to take another quarterback as well. I don't really know who is the best out of these next four. Although one of them I won't even probably mention, but these three, Tyler Van Dyke out of Miami, Will Levis out of Kentucky, who some are saying he has like the arm talent and abilities to be like a top 5 pick next year. But I also like to look at success for a team. And then I also have Hendon Hooker from Tennessee, who was unreal in the Josh Heupel passing system last year. And he might have another crazy year because he has a guy, what's his name? I think his name is Cedric Tillman for Tennessee, a wide receiver, who is probably going to be a first or second round pick when he goes. And they have a really good connection. So, but at the end of the day, I just really like Tyler Van Dyke, and I'm going to go with him. Although, like I said, I do think Will Levis might be a stud. But at the end of the day, he has to play Georgia, and so they're not going to win the SEC East. So that's just how it is. But, yeah, I'm going to go with Tyler Van Dyke. I'm going to stay in the ACC a little bit. Another guy that we'll talk about later, and some guys that might stand out, I'm bringing back the DJ Ugalugale hype for Clemson. We'll talk about that later.
Did you have Sam Hartman on your list by chance? I know he's hurt right now, but
I actually took him off just because he was hurt. I have
Okay.
no idea what's wrong with him. They just said he pretty much almost died away from the practice field, so I have no idea what's wrong with him.
yeah, he's going to be out for weeks upon weeks. But he was really good last year, and I think he'll be good this year. That's an honorable mention, Sam Hartman, even though he's injured. I got an offensive flex position and a defensive flex position left. And all my defensive players, except for one, are taken. And I haven't taken a Clemson player yet, so I'll take Trenton Simpson, linebacker from Clemson. And I know that Cam said about the Clemson North Carolina recruiting battles earlier, and this was another guy that was involved in that. He chose Clemson, and he was a freshman last year, and he didn't play very much. But this year, he's going to take a bigger role on the team. And, obviously help command the defense. And Clemson's got title hopes this year, so he's going to have a really good year. That's my defensive flex position.
Yeah. I can't even get around that one. Although I think he's actually going to be a junior this year. No offense. Last year, I think you're thinking of 2 years ago when he was a freshman. He only played when they were like blowing people out. But last year he started to play, and it was just sad to see the way that he was just making all these plays. And I was just thinking, man, we really needed a linebacker help last year. And he was like Luke said, he was in the recruiting battle of a lifetime. I remember I changed my Twitter handle for like a month to "We Want Trenton Simpson." I don't know if you remember that, but I definitely did. That, yeah. So yeah, but I guess we're done with the off. Oh no, you said you have a flex position, right? Yeah. I'm gonna stay at Clemson here. I have 2 guys on my defensive line big board from Clemson. I think I'm going to go interior because you said we're going to do an edge rusher. And I'm going to take Brian Brees. The big defensive tackle was the #1 recruit in the nation. I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. It might be Breesy. I can't remember. But
I think it's Breesy.
But he is just unreal. And another Clemson guy. So I'm going to take him. He's probably going to have a huge year. He doesn't really rack up a ton of sacks, but he stuffs the run like crazy, and he'll play in the NFL. I think it kind of reminds me of Ed Oliver when he came out because he just stuffed the run like crazy. But, yeah, I'm going to take Brees.
I think it is Brian Breesy. That sounds right. So I got one more offensive player left, either running back, wide receiver, or tight end. And to be honest, I don't like any of my picks that I have left. Like the ones that I've written down, you took all of them or I took them. So I have a few honorable mentions. I got Luther Burden out of Missouri. That's just kind of a hope pick, though. That's not like a realistic. I do think he'll have a good season. I have Travion Henderson, a running back from I do lose his name, which might be my pick. And then I also have A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest. But with Sam Hartman being out for a while, their connection last year was really good at Wake Forest. I don't know how his performance is going to be. So with that, I'm just going to go with the trifecta. I took C.J. Stroud. I took Jackson Smith in the Jigba. I'll go Travion Henderson in my flex. So I will go with the Ohio State big three on the offense. And then you'll wrap us up with your final pick.
Yeah, I had Trayvon Henderson as well, honestly, on my board. But, okay, so is this my last pick? I've got 3 quarterbacks, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, tight end, flex, interior D-line. I have a linebacker. We didn't do middle linebacker, I guess. That was just one thing we left off. Edge rusher, okay. This is kind of like a hope pick, I guess, for Luke, like Luke just said. But he's a junior now. He is strong and super fast and was unstoppable that they kind of just had to pull him out of the spring game for UNC. His name is Desmond Evans. He is going to be a stud off the edge, I think, this year, as long as he stays healthy. And he's kind of a sleeper pick, I think, because there's some other guys that I could definitely have taken, but I want to go with him, kind of like the Josh Downs pick. He is just a stud, and I get to watch him all the time. And you look at him, and you're like, oh, yeah, that's probably a first-round defensive lineman just off his body type. You can look at him, like just type in his name, and you'll just be like, oh, yeah, he looks like a first-round defensive end. And I think he might play like one this year for the first time in his career. He shows flashes all the time, and it's just like, okay, we just need to put all together for him, and he might have a great year. And they need it because, like I said, the linebacker play the last couple of years has been horrendous outside of maybe Chance the Rat. So, yeah, they really need Desmond Evans to step up. I think he will.
Okay. So is that your final defensive pick? Okay, so you said something about doing like middle linebacker, outside linebacker. But if we were doing that, I'd just take Nolan Smith at the outside linebacker. But I think that's going to wrap up our draft segment anyway. So one of us will put out a graphic, I guess, to kind of recap this and make it less confusing for the listeners. But I had fun doing that, so I feel like my team is better than yours. So if we did like a fantasy competition, I'd feel like my team would beat yours over the course of the year.
I think we'll try and revisit it later on, right?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
It'll probably be a while. Or maybe we'll do a check-in, too, as well, kind of like we did with MLB just randomly. But, we'll base it off just eyeballs and yards and tackles and picks and touchdowns, wins and losses, all of that. And maybe at the end of the year, I'm sure we'll laugh at some of these. Just
definitely.
Like some possible laughers. Spencer Rattler, if he just sucks again, would be funny.
Second QB pick there.
Just because I don't really like him because he's such a cocky bastard. But you also kind of have to respect the cockiness. But
if you're good, then it's respectable. I also wanted to give a shout out here. I had like a power rankings of best names, and you took Bumper Pool already, so we visited him. I want to give a shout out to Dakotas Crawford, a wide receiver out of Nebraska. You probably heard of him because of the commercial that he just did. That was pretty cool. And then a running back out of Auburn, Tank Bigsby, also a cool name as well. So I just love the names in college football. There's so many cool ones out there.
Oh, yeah, because there's so many players. Another one, UNC guy, Storm Duck, really good defensive back.
Storm Duck.
Who's honestly a stud when he's healthy. He's been saying that a lot, I feel like. But really cool name there. There's just a lot of cool names in college football because, like I said, there's just so many teams and play. Rosters are huge compared to the NFL size. So, but yeah, that was a pretty long segment. I'll rattle off some of my notable mentions. Luke mentioned A.T. Perry, Wake Forest. He's a stud. Another just reception kind of guy. I had Sean Tucker as well on my running back big board. Ran for 1,500 yards last year for Syracuse, which is a ton. Had Miles Murphy on my defensive line big board, another Clemson guy who got, I think 10 sacks last year. Nolan Smith was a guy we didn't take. Cam Smith is probably the best defensive back we left off from South Carolina, as well as Clark Phillips, the second from Utah, who's also really good. But yeah.
Did you mention the
running back from Syracuse?
Yeah, I just said him. Sean
Okay.
Tucker.
All right. I blinked there for a second when I was watching the Cardinal game, but yeah, he's kind of a beast. Did you mention Miles Murphy too?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just. And then another QB. You'll probably hate this one. Devin Leary.
He's a stud too.
You'll
Yeah.
talk about him. He was just
Although
kind
I
of a
think
tier behind the other
he'll
ones.
probably be like a 7th round pick in the NFL and just suck. He doesn't really have NFL
Yeah,
stuff.
but
I don't think.
he's also NC
Holy
State.
shit!
Newt Bar.
Newt Bomb.
Lead off home run.
Newt Bomb. That was beautiful swing. It's always funny when we do that during the show.
Yeah.
They have no idea. But
Watching the
going
Cardinal
on?
game live. All right.
Let's do conference champion predictions.
Or you just want to stick on the player side and just do Heisman finalists here?
Okay, yeah, we'll do that
Okay.
real quick. As the show is already running.
Yeah.
That was a decent lengthy segment.
That was
just the
it was
draft.
fun though. I had fun doing that.
So, yeah.
Okay, my top 3, I'll just rattle them off quick. In order, I have Bryce Young repeating as the Heisman winner. Second, I have Will Anderson, his teammate. And then third, I have C.J. Stroud. So kind of just a very basic list, but at the same time, like it's pretty solid. You can't really go wrong with it.
I don't even know if I had picked a winner, but I will. I'll also say Bryce Young because that's who I really think is going to win. I just didn't write it down, but I had Will Anderson, and then I also put Bijan Robinson from Texas. I think he's going to have like a Ricky Williams type year where they're just going to be like, okay, we have to throw him on here, even though Texas is 8-4 with a loss to Kansas. And then I think they're going to invite 4 this year because there's so many good players. And I said C.J. Stroud is probably going to be invited too, but I don't think they'll win. A dark horse, Jackson Smith-Njigba, if he has a year like Devonta Smith did a couple years ago. So
The number 1 overall pick in our draft. So
Yeah.
you got to get a shout out for that, I guess.
yeah. So yeah, that's our Heisman prediction.
All right, now we can do
Conference.
conferences. Which one we want to start off with? SEC? Pac-12. Okay, the boring one.
Yep.
The one that
I did boring in order.
Okay, well, I actually watch the Pac-12 sometimes because I'm a night owl and I just stay up and watch the Pac-12. Also, one of my favorite teams, Arizona, plays. Sometimes it's worse to watch Arizona play though because they're so bad. My top 2 that I have now. Pac-12 has divisions. Most of these, the only one that doesn't have divisions is Big 12, I think. It's just whoever has the most wins in that conference. But I have USC winning on one side, beating out Utah and UCLA. That's kind of going to be the tougher one. Those 3 teams are going to be right, kind of in the mix. But Lincoln Riley has that postseason experience where I think he's going to, lead the team ultimately. And USC, I have facing off against Oregon. I don't really think that other side really has that much competition at all. It's like Oregon State, Washington State, Stanford, Cal, like some of the boring teams. So Oregon's, I think, is going to run away with it. And I have Oregon repeating as Pac-12 conference champions. I think they'll beat USC.
Well, except that they got absolutely shit pumped against Utah in the championship last year.
Oh.
But other than that, yeah, they did make it last
year.
Is
it 2 years ago that they won? With, what's his face?
Herbert?
No, not Herbert. The guy after him. It was like a year. Yeah, I think it was because it was the COVID year. They weren't supposed to win.
Oh, okay.
And then
they just ran. Yeah, I know.
Because the team that was ahead of them, they had too many COVID players. And
Yeah.
they opt out.
Yeah.
Oregon got an automatic bid to the championship and then won. So it was kind of a Mickey win. But
I actually have Utah over USC, but I'll say this: if USC makes it back and they win the Pac-12, it's going to be way better for college football than if Utah wins. US win is good, college football is great. So yeah, but I have Utah versus Oregon again, a repeat, and I'm gonna say Utah's gonna win. I think Bo Nix will probably just choke. So So yeah, I have my winner is Utah, and what did Luke say? Did you say USC or Oregon?
I had
Oh, you had
Oregon.
Oregon.
Oregon
Yeah,
beating
you had
USC.
Oregon repeating,
Yeah.
so to speak.
Repeating, yes. So you have Oregon at
Getting beat in the championship.
Yeah, by Utah.
so
again.
just a repeat of last year, basically.
Yeah.
Okay.
Except it'll probably be closer. That was just an unreal
Well, yeah,
blowout.
That was terrible. That was worse than watching them lose to Stanford.
Yeah. I'll start the Big 12. Mine is a complete underground shocker. I have Kansas State versus Iowa State in the Big 12 championship game in Arlington, Texas. And it's just going to be, I just think the Big 12 is going to tear itself apart this year. They're just going to beat up on each other too much. Like Oklahoma State and Baylor are just going to beat up on each other. Oklahoma, first year Jares with Coach Venables, they're just not going to do as much as their fan base would probably like. And I just think this is Matt Campbell is just going to find a way to lead Iowa State there. And then Kansas State is going to be powered by Deuce Vaughn randomly, and they're just going to have some big key wins at the beginning of the year, like Mizzou, to power them throughout the season. And they're going to just find ways to win at home in Manhattan. And they're not even going to have a clean record when they get to the championship. It's just that they're going to have won the most conference games. So yeah, I think it's going to be those two, and I'm going to have Iowa State winning it. And I think it's going to be the least watched of the championship games when they come around. It'll just be like Kansas State versus Iowa State will be on at like 11 a.m. to start off championship Saturday in college football, and you'll watch it because it'll probably be like a high-scoring affair, but it'll be like the least covered game of the day, if that makes sense. So, yeah. It'll be a weird year for the Big 12, which is not what they need with them losing.
Yeah, two of their biggest teams.
Yeah.
The Big 12 was so hard to predict because a lot of these teams are just you could see any of them winning, and I thought heavily about putting Iowa State in my championship. I have Baylor. That one is pretty much a no doubt for me. I'm big on Baylor this year. Their coach, I forget what his name is, but he's been there for a few years now since the departure of Matt Rule to the NFL, and he's been really good. But the second team, it was so tough to find one. I'm now like debating. So Iowa State was up there. Oklahoma obviously is up there. Oklahoma State with Mike Gundy, they're going to have a really good year. And then you could even throw in like a Texas or a West Virginia. I think they're going to be kind of, but they're not really on that championship tier level. Kansas State obviously is going to be competitive as well. I don't think that would be fun to see them in the Big 12 championship, but I don't think that's going to happen. I'll go with the boring pick. I'll go with Oklahoma, though, just to be different from you, even though I would not be shocked if Ohio or Iowa State, and then I have Baylor winning it again, repeating. This one's actually a true repeat, so I have two green teams winning.
Yeah, I like you said it. Yes, it's super hard to predict every year, pretty much, except when Oklahoma's surefire good. You are always just trying to pinpoint the other team. And so this is kind of what I put. I put if Deuce Vaughn goes off, Kansas State might have a chance to get there. But the same goes with B. John Robinson in Texas. Who knows? But I don't think Texas' defense is good enough. And I don't know how we didn't mention this guy during the wide receivers segment stuff. Xavier Worthy for Texas, stud wide receiver, and he's just a sophomore. He's one of the top 6 probably wide receivers in the country. So, and they just announced Quinn Ewers is going to be the starter, so we'll see how that goes for him. But yeah, all right, we'll jump over to the ACC, the homeland of my favorite team, their conference.
Now, you said you did this in order of boringness. I'd put the ACC below the Big 12.
You think the Big 12 is going to be more interesting?
Yeah, just because they're an offensive league and, offense.
I can understand that, but I actually think some interesting stuff is going to happen in the ACC this year, like really crazy stuff. I think I put FU NC State on this as well, but I think that Clemson and NC State is going to that division game is going to determine who goes to the ACC championship game. But I think Clemson is ultimately going to win it. I'm on the Clemson train this year. But I think it's probably going to be like Clemson is probably going to be like 10-1, or not 10-1. Whenever they play each other, they're both either going to have one loss or they're both going to be undefeated going into the NC State Clemson game, and it's just going to determine who conference. And then I rode with Van Dyke earlier, and that's why I'm riding with Miami. I think they're finally going to beat North Carolina this year, and I think North Carolina is going to be second in the Coastal, and but they're ultimately going to lose to Miami, and Miami's going to go. And then Miami's just going to get shit pumped by Clemson. They're going to just keep Van Dyke in check, and Clemson's going to go to the college football playoff. But I have Clemson over Miami, and I think it's always like USC. It's always good when Miami's good in football. So, but I don't think they're going to be super good. I just think they're going to squeak by UNC and get to the title game. So,
yeah. I think the one pick is really easy. Clemson on the one side. I forget if it's Atlantic or Coastal. But they're going to win. Last year, they went 10-3, and they finished like second or third in that division. And people considered it an off year, like a down year for Clemson. And you finish second or third with a 10-3 record and finish in the top 25 rankings. So that just shows how good that program has been. And I think they'll elevate back up to that level this year and go. And then I have a surprising pick on the other side. It was such a close division. Miami is the favorite going into it, but they've been really disappointing the last few years. And, obviously they don't have Manny Diaz anymore, but you just don't know how Mario Cristobal is going to do. And Tyler Van Dyke is also a young quarterback. He had a really good year last year, so I have Virginia. They're just kind of like a solid overall team. They got a good quarterback. I forget what his name is. I'm blanking on his name right now. But
I actually almost put him on my quarterback list. That's how good he is. He's definitely top 3 quarterback in the ACC. His name is Brennan Armstrong. He's left-handed. Right. He just runs all over the place and throws for like 400 yards. It is crazy. They also have sweet uniforms. So I actually don't mind that pick, but I do think if they have to play Clemson or NC State, they'll probably just get shit pumped. So,
the winner of that side of is going to lose to Clemson in the title game. That's pretty obvious. But there's just so many close teams with Miami, Carolina, Pittsburgh. Even though they lost Kenny Pickett, they're still going to be up there, and then even Virginia Tech could be in that category. So there's just so many other, but I think Virginia is just going to be more consistent. They're going to pick up some really weird wins throughout the year. Like they'll just squeak out a win, and they're not going to have a great record, but they'll finish like a game, or maybe they'll have like a tiebreaker over the other teams, and that's how they'll get to the
I think game. If Virginia makes it to the ACC title, it'll kind of fall into the line of the Big 12 title game where not many people are going to care about it, because I think if Virginia makes it, they'll probably be like 8-4 and somehow make it to the championship. But yeah, that has happened recently where the coastal teams just beat up on each other and nobody has a good record when it's time to get to the championship week. Obviously Pitt was good last year, but that game didn't even matter. It was Pitt versus Wake Forest in the championship game last year. And it had no implications on the playoff. So, yeah, but this year I definitely think it will if Clemson's involved, or NC State for that matter. But I think Clemson's going to win.
All right, you want to move on to Big Ten next?
Yep.
Okay. This one I think is pretty obvious on the one side. It's so weird how these conferences are like so uneven. Mm-hmm. Like there's just one side that had, even the SEC, there's one side that like every single team is just contending and they're good and they're going to be competing with each other. The other side, there's like one good team and the rest just suck. And that's how it is on this one. Ohio State's on the good side. They got like Penn State, Michigan, some of those teams, but they're just so good this year. They are so good. Ryan Day is just cruising right now, and they are going to go to the Big Ten title, and they're going to beat. Here is a very shocking pick, but I want it to happen. They're going to beat Nebraska in the title game. You can laugh all you want, but I was looking at the other side, and it's not out of the picture. Like it's not as crazy you think it is. It's going to take a really good season from Nebraska. They're going to have everything click. But I think Scott Frost, his job's kind of on the line, and Nebraska's just due. they're just due for a good season. And Crawford, they got the brand names there. I could not tell you what their quarterback's name is or anything about him, but hey, Nebraska's a fun team, and if they do make it to this game, they are going to get just it's going to be a tough scene for them against Ohio State.
Well, Nebraska has this going for them. They sell out every home game. But they also believe in Scott Frost way too much, including my former head football coach, Coach Derek Heflin. He says just give Scott Frost all the time that he needs in the world. And I don't agree with that. I picked Wisconsin to play Ohio State in this game with Braylon Allen and Graham Mertz leading the way. But I really can't even see Nebraska win. I think if it's not Wisconsin, it's Iowa going instead, because Iowa's always decent too. It seems like Kirk Ferentz always finds a way to reel off 10 wins. So I think it's going to be either Wisconsin or Iowa. But if Nebraska does make it, I'll say this. You say it would be a blowout against Ohio State. I think Nebraska would play it close against Ohio State if they somehow made it. They would have so much momentum on their side to get blown out. And you say Nebraska being good is good for football. I guess you could say that if you're from the 80s, but I've been fine with Nebraska being shitty all my life. So I'm fine if they suck again this year. And I don't think they'll get that far.
I was thinking that.
And Adrian Martinez, their former quarterback who was there for like 12 years, he left and went to Kansas State, I think.
So, yes, yeah. You're right.
So I don't even know who their quarterback is. So
yeah, you're right. That's
Scott Frost might have to play. So
I was thinking that Rutgers was on Nebraska's side. They're not. They're on Ohio State's side. So that's one easier team for Ohio State. But yeah, like you said, Illinois has no chance. Brett Bielema ball is not made for the Big Ten. Minnesota, they had hope a few years ago, but they've just kind of fallen off. They're very mid. They're not going to win. Northwestern sucks. Purdue kind of mid at this. They can beat anyone, but they can also lose to anyone. Wisconsin would have been the safe pick for sure in this one. And then Iowa, that's just a boring pick. I did not want to do that. I did not want to hurt my eyes with watching Iowa football. So it was either Wisconsin or Nebraska for me at that point. I was just like, well, let's go with the surprising Nebraska. You know, they're either going to be really good and win the whole thing, or they're going to be like really bad and go like 4-8 again, and just it probably fire Scott Frost. So I'm rooting for the big, the Cornhuskers to come back. They're going to be back.
If they do get that far, you will see nothing but Nebraska football is back. They're back. But like I said, I just don't think I don't think that one will happen. It would be crazy though. And it's definitely an underdog pick.
I picked it. I'm not necessarily sure. I don't really think it's going to happen either.
I may have talked you out of it a little bit here, but
no, you didn't talk me. I'm sticking with it. But Wisconsin is definitely Wisconsin's the better team. But
I just think Graham Mertz might turn a corner. And Wisconsin's offensive line is always big and good, and their defense is always solid, especially at the linebacker position. So I just think and they play pretty much in a bounce house when they do jump around. So
yeah, but one thing you said about Wisconsin's defense being really good, there's like a stat out there that it's like they're the top 3 in like points per game or yards per game, and they're up there with like Alabama, Georgia, like all these like top tier defenses, and there's Wisconsin. So they're like the Steelers, like they're never top, but they're always a really good defense.
That's also because it's the Big Ten, and it's sometimes just a punt fest. And I say that because even Wisconsin, like I said, I think Graham Mertz is going to turn a corner this year, but if he doesn't, they're still going to have a chance to play in the Big Ten title, but it would just be another year of punt fest, which is what the Big Ten is, and we love it. But at the end of the day, and I also agree with you that saying Iowa is just an eyesore to pick, but it's also always a safe pick. They're always there, it feels like. We're going to move on to the big bad SEC, and I just have Alabama versus Georgia.
Yeah, that's what I have
with the Alabama winner.
That's exactly the
So-
pick that I have. But
But
the SEC, we said we were going to pick like
yeah,
every team.
yeah,
so,
I
okay.
have it.
We're going to do the East first with Mizzou.
Sure, that's fine.
Okay, that's kind of the more boring side of it.
Yeah.
So.
I have in the SEC East, I have Georgia 1, Tennessee 2 with Hendon Hooker and Mr. Cedric Tillman and the Heupel offense. And then I have Will Levis in Kentucky coming in at 3rd, right behind Tennessee, by the way. And then South Carolina at 4 with Shatler. Mizzou coming. This is a big one. Mizzou coming in at 5th. They pretty much have been picked either 7th or 6th everywhere else. Not here. Picked 5th over Florida and Vanderbilt. So I don't think Billy Napier is going to have a great first year at Florida. And then I think he's going to turn it around. I just think he needs a little bit of time for Florida. That's why I have them at 6. But yeah, Mizzou at 5.
Well, if you were saying this, it's a risk to put Missouri 5th. I put them 4th. So I had them 5th originally, and then I was like, no, they're going to be better than Florida. So I flipped them. I have Georgia 1. I think that's a very, very safe pick. They're going to be number 1 by a mile. It's not even going to be close. They're not going to be like as dominant as last year, but they're so good that they just blow every one of these teams out of the water. I have at number 2 now. Goes hand in hand with my Spencer Rattler pick, South Carolina. I have making a resurgence with Shane Beamerball at number 2 in this, just ahead, just slightly, maybe a tiebreaker ahead of Kentucky and Will Levis. So I like that pick. I think this is going to be Kentucky's best football season in a long, long time. Then Mizzou, I have 4th, which is kind of a risky pick, but hey, I think they're going to be better than Florida. And then I have Tennessee at 6. So that's kind of where we disagree the most. You had them at 2. I have them at 6. I just don't believe in Tennessee and what they're doing over there. The Volunteers, they got the big fan base, but and obviously Vandy's 7th. That goes without saying. Probably winless in the SEC again.
I'll try and explain my reasoning for it.
You did.
Josh Heupel went 8-4 last year in the SEC in his first ever year. And usually when Tennessee hires a new head coach, it's just Rocky Flop, you know. And I'm fine if it's Rocky Flop again this year.
Rocky Flop. I like that terminology.
But I'm rooting for Rocky Flop. But I don't think it's going to happen this year. And in fact, I think, last year when Mizzou played Tennessee, oh my God, they just boat raced us and threw it all over the place. And I'm a believer. I'm a Hendon Hooker believer. And their recruiting has been off the charts lately. Although everybody's recruiting in the SEC is off the charts, but they've been really good. I've been turned into a Heupel believer, courtesy of Ron Milheiser. That's just why I have them up so high. But they're also a known choke artist school since the 21st century. So it also wouldn't shock me. I don't think they'd fall as far as 6th. I think if they were to fall, the farthest they'd fall is 5, but all the way up at 2 just because Hendon Hooker believer. But yeah, SEC West now on the other hand.
Well, I think
with the SEC East, Georgia's going to be 1 in everyone's predictions. He's going to be last, but 2 through
Although
6.
I've seen some Kentucky believers that are just hardcore Levis guys.
Yeah, they're just a little bit too hopeful. It's like the Lions being hopeful for a playoff spot this year. Like there's a small chance it could happen, but most likely not. But 2 through 6 in that one is really interchangeable with any other team. Kentucky is going to be towards the top of that. That's the only thing that they're going to be either 2 or 3, but anybody else is interchangeable.
Yeah. Big year for basketball school, Kentucky. SEC West, though, I'll rattle mine off here, starting from the top this time as well. Bama 1, and then it's going to be Texas A&M at 2. This one is wild. I had to sit here and think about the SEC West besides Alabama for a while. I'm looking at my picks right now, and I still don't know.
The exact same thing.
It's just a dogfight.
I changed it. My picks I wrote down 1. I was like, no, that's not it, and I changed the picks around like 4 or 5 times.
Yeah. This one at 3 again. I think they're going to have another good year. Ole Miss. 4 Arkansas with KJ Jefferson and company. And then 5 LSU. 6 Auburn again. It's just going to be another weird Iron Bowl, even though it'll probably still be close somehow. And then 7 Mississippi State. And I'll talk about this one later when we talk about our disappointing teams. And I think Mississippi State is going to fall towards the bottom again. So, yeah.
Well, I agree with you on 1, 2, 3. I have Bama, A&M, Ole Miss, and then 4 through 7. I had changed these picks around like 4 or 5 times. I originally had Arkansas at 4, then I moved them down to 6. I currently have them at 5, and at 4 I have Mississippi State. The Mike Leach offense it's going to be in its 3rd year, and if you look at the air raid offense historically, the 3rd year is when it clicks. Mm-hmm. And I forget who their QB's name is, but if you remember, you can say it. But
it's Will Rogers.
Will Rogers, yeah,
and he
big
started
arm.
to click at the end of the year. And like I said, I'll get more into why I picked them so far down the list. Mostly it just has to do with it's just a gauntlet. And I could also see them ahead of Auburn. But I just feel like Auburn and Brian Harsin, they're not going to fall all the way to the bottom. That's why I had a struggle even putting them at 6, even though they have barely any big names. You know, they have Tank Bigsby, I guess you could say, and they have a really good linebacker. I struggle saying his last name, Popo, I think is how you say it. I don't know how to say it, but
Popoli.
They have some. Yeah, I think it might be that. They have some guys. It's just such a hard conference or division to predict.
Alabama and A&M are kind of like the top 2 tiers in that, but then everyone else is just it's a dog. I have Arkansas 5th. I have LSU falling to 6th just because of their quarterback situation, and if you don't have a quarterback, it's going to be tough to compete in this division. And then I have Auburn last. They also don't really have a quarterback either since Bo Nix left. And that's just it's kind of sad because Auburn used to be such a big football school, and now like they've just flipped and they're now a basketball school. So, but I have them 7th. It's a sad pick because it's Auburn. They're football and they're finishing last. But some of these teams are just so good.
Then they actually do have a quarterback. He just struggled at the end of the year. His name's TJ Finley. He actually started at LSU, if you remember that, when they were looking for their quarterback after Joe Burrow left. But he transferred to Auburn, and I was just waiting for Bo Nix to leave, I guess. And he finally got the job when Bo Nix sat out the rest of the year. And he played during the Iron Bowl, I'm pretty sure. So it's kind of like Heupel. I'm a believer in Brian Harsin. He just goes about his job, his work, and his teams are really good. I mean, Boise State is still a really good program, and he was there before this. And that's why even I have Texas. I know you said it's like unanimous Texas A&M at 2, and they've had some hellacious. They've had the best recruiting classes lately. But sometimes Texas A&M, they can never find a quarterback since Johnny Manziel, really, which is
they did
crazy
last year, and he just got hurt, and Haynes King
is
coming back this year. So.
But I remember having to watch Zach Calzada. You remember him? I mean, just a total shitter.
Last year, yeah, he was. I don't even think he knew how to play quarterback. I'm not sure how he got an SEC starting position. But
well, because Haynes was dead. But
well, yeah, but why was he even on Texas? That seems like a guy that would like play like Villanova or something. It's just a sad story.
Yeah, this is kind of reminds me of the middle of the Big 12 pack. It's just so hard to pick. So same with the Coastal with the ACC. You just don't really know, and that's kind of the beauty of it. That's why it's the best.
Exactly.
That's why it's the best division, even over the Big Ten. I can't remember if they're legends or leaders, but the one with Ohio State and Michigan, it's even better than that one. And I wrote this down. I think it's
Alabama,
the best conference this year. Again,
Alabama is just like kind of the clear-cut pick because they're so much better. But it's definitely like it has the most depth out of any division in college football.
But with that being said, I think we'll get into our Mizzou preview.
Okay. We could do Mizzou
Before we do picks.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine.
Mizzou preview is. Do you want to go through their schedule, or you just want to?
I didn't go through their schedule, but I just wrote down some notes here, and it's basically Eli Drinkwitz, probably needs to make a big leap this year, which is going to be tough because the SEC is going to be stupid good this year, like we said, better than last year for sure, and they still struggled. Brady Cook is now your starting quarterback. The Chaminade product has a good arm, and he's a dual threat quarterback. He likes to run around. And that's what Drink has been saying that he's been doing at practice. So I just hope he can lead them, though,
Well, if
from
you
a
remember-
leadership perspective. They need it.
Yeah, if you remember from the bowl game against Army last year, he played in that one over Basilek.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so if you watched that, you saw his abilities and what he had to offer for Mizzou this year.
Yeah. Big part of the preview here of this is just Luther Burden, the third. Do I need to say more? I mean, he's so electric. I can't wait to watch him. And personally, this is the best wide receiver room since LaDainian Washington, DGB, Bud Sasser, Marcus Lucas, and the rest of the gang. And that was from like 2013. So that was a long time ago. But we've got Luther Burden, Dominic Levitt, Mookie Cooper, Barrett Bannister coming back for like his 6th year. Toski Dove, who's honestly my personal favorite besides Luther. I just haven't seen him play yet. Coach Looper's son, Chance Looper. And so it just sucks that there's only one football to give it out to. We are going to miss Tyler Beatty, but we do have some good young running backs, I think. Elijah Young and Taj Butts. I think they'll do fine this year, but because our offensive line is a very mature unit, and I think it'll be our strong point in offense, which is a good thing to have, especially when your quarterback needs to get, situated in terms of SEC football. So, yeah. But, like I said, too bad there's only one ball. And then on defense, secondary should be really good, I think. We have Chris Abrams-Drain, who's going to get drafted. Martez Manuel, who is pretty much a linebacker safety, kind of like a Jamal Adams kind of type player. He'll come down in the box a lot. Ennis Rakestraw is probably maybe the best corner on the team when he's healthy. Flipped him from Bama a few years ago, and he's been super good when he's been able to play. Jalen Carlisle's and Jelani Williams as well. And then we also have a big D-line veteran, Isaiah McGuire, and we got a ton of transfers, some guys from like Oklahoma State. We got Tyrone Hopper from North Carolina who transferred in. And but I think the biggest problem here is linebacker play for Mizzou. We couldn't stop the run last year, as we mentioned earlier in the show. And we're going to have to stop guys very early on in the year, like Deuce Vaughn. So, yeah, our schedule is just tough as hell as well. I don't know what's wrong with her. I think Luke just said she was sleeping. Maybe she was dreaming. But yeah, I'm going to the game on September 1st for the game against LA Tech. It's on a Thursday. Should be an electric factory with Luther Burden's first game against the Conference USA team. So I'm excited.
I mean, it'll be a fun game, but like it's also a Thursday night against a very bad team. So.
Oh yeah, but I'm so excited to go to a football game.
Yeah, I know it's gonna be fun. That's actually next Thursday, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's coming up soon. So I have their schedule pulled up.
Well, not this Thursday, but the following.
Yeah. I guess technically 2 Thursdays from now. I have their schedule pulled up, so I think Louisiana Tech. If we lose that game, whole season just is over.
Yeah.
And then we also have an automatic win against Abilene Christian.
Yeah, but that's week 3, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm skipping over. Then we have Kansas State.
Yeah, we've kind of talked about
at Kansas
that.
State. That's going to be a really tough. It's a winnable game, but it's going to be tough.
Very losable.
Yes. It's going to come down to that's a big coach drink evaluation game. You know, how will he and the team respond to, a good decent opponent. Abilene Christian, that's a win. Then we have at Auburn, and I think Mizzou actually wins this game. I think Auburn will go through a funk at the beginning of the year, especially, and I think Mizzou kind of has them at a perfect time. Then we got Georgia. That's a loss, a pretty bad one at that. Then we got Florida. This is another one of the Coach Drink evaluation games. Like, how will he do? How will his team respond? It's at Florida in the Swamp. So that's going to – if we come out of that with a win, it's going to be so electric. And then we got a bye week after that. And then we got Vandy at home. So that's a win. It's as simple as that. I don't have to say anything else. That is a win. Unless you're Barry Odom, you just lose to Vandy at home. Which, if we don't win against Vanderbilt, you might as well just forfeit the season because it's a failure.
Yeah.
You lose to Vanderbilt at home.
I mean,
Simple
we
as that.
we almost lost to them on the road last year. I don't know if you watched that game, but if we didn't have Tyler Beatty, we would have lost. So, and there was nobody there.
Vanderbilt just seems to always play us tough.
Oh yeah, they always do. Mizzou and maybe a Florida or Tennessee, they always play up. And then everybody else, they just play like normal Vanderbilt and just get shit rocked. But yeah, they always play Mizzou tough.
Yeah. So then after the Vanderbilt game, we go to South Carolina to take on Spencer Rattler. That's probably going to be a loss just because of, not just Spencer Rattler, but the whole South Carolina team is pretty good. They got a really good defense. And it's also in South Carolina. Then we come home to play Kentucky. And this one also, I think, is going to be a loss. Not only because Kentucky's got Will Levis and, they're a really good team, but Kentucky just has our number. And no matter what, it just seems like we can't beat Kentucky. And then we go to Knoxville, Tennessee to play the Volunteers. This, I think, is a win. I think that's a very winnable game. Now, granted, it could be completely different. Like, me and Cam have different views on Tennessee this year. And then we come home to New Mexico State. That's a win, obviously. And then we finish with Arkansas at home. So it's a really tough schedule. I think I only see really 3 automatic wins on here. Well, I guess 4 if you count Vanderbilt. So the rest are going to be very tough games. And it's really a big evaluation year for Coach Drink. The Auburn, Florida, Kansas State, Tennessee, those are all going to be how will Mizzou respond? Are they really taking the next step to the next level, or are they just kind of wandering in mediocrity? What do you have for the record prediction?
I've been rattling around 5-7 to 7-5. But I think I'm going to take a bias pick and say that they're going to win 7, maybe 6. I can't really. Me and my dad have been over this 100 times that they're going to win at least 7 games, and I think if we want a realistic expectation, it's 6. But I don't know if that's really good enough for Coach Drink to not be on the hot seat after that, to only win 6 games, unless you win the bowl game by a great margin. But we suck in bowl games of late, so it's not something you can bet on. So I want to say 6-6 with a possible win in a bowl game, hopefully 7-6. But I don't know. I really don't know. It's such a toss-up in the air. It's kind of like Mizzou basketball over the past couple of years sometimes, even though we've really sucked. Sometimes we have our guys will get older and we'll be okay, this is a possible 20-win season. And then it's just so questionable. That's why Luke and I are saying this is a big Eli Drinkwitz evaluation year. And I don't even see 4 guaranteed wins. I see LA Tech, but if we lose to LA Tech like we did against UTEP at home all those years ago, then we're just done. Drinkwitz might not even be in his office that next following Saturday. But I think we will beat LA Tech. I think we will beat Vanderbilt, and I think we'll beat Abilene Christian. And I think we will beat New Mexico State. But then I circle back to Vanderbilt after what happened last year, and I can't come to my senses and say that that's a guaranteed win. So personally, I only see 3 guaranteed. But yeah, Vanderbilt is a possible 4th, just like pencil it in as a win. And Luke's right. I mean, like I said, I believe in Brian Harsin, but if we don't beat Brian Harsin at Auburn early in the year, we could be in some serious trouble. Hopefully, like I think Florida's not going to be good, and so I think we can beat Florida, but it's also in the swamp. But we've had success in the swamp, believe it or not. So since Mizzou has joined the SEC, so in the swamp, no offense to Florida fans, but it's not what it used to be over the last few years. So yeah, I mean, besides that game against LSU where that guy threw that player's shoe, and then LSU came back, it was rocking during that game, but ever since they lost that too, I mean, it's just been a tough place. So I'm gonna say heart on heart 6-6.
You see, I was actually debating whether it would be 7 or 8 wins. So maybe I'm just a little bit too hopeful, or maybe I believe too much in Drink that it's his 3rd year and he has to take the step up. He doesn't want to be on the hot seat, and maybe that gives him a little bit more of an edge to play good, or to get the team to play good. So I said
if he
earlier,
wins 8 games, like you think he has
that's
a
a good year.
possibility,
Yeah.
he's fine. He probably bought himself 2 years if he wins 8 games.
Oh yeah, for sure, especially with this schedule. But
Yeah, especially after last year too.
So I have, like I said earlier, I have 4 guaranteed wins, and then I have 3 guaranteed losses. That would be against Georgia, obviously, Kentucky, obviously, and then I have South Carolina label as a guaranteed loss. Even though if South Carolina plays really bad, we could, but that's just it's such a tough. It would be such a tough win anyway. So right now that's 4 and 3 at the automatics.
Oh wait, that's in Columbia, South Carolina.
That's in South Carolina.
Okay. Yeah, I went to the game last year where South Carolina played Mizzou at Mizzou, and they won. But it's a completely revamped team with Shatler now. So
Oh yeah. They're like actually wanting to compete this year. So that with my automatics out of the way, I have 4 and 3. So that leaves 5 toss-up games. And granted, if we win 4 out of those 5 toss-up games and go 8 and 4, that would be incredible. Especially because 4 of those toss-up games are on the road. But I think we match up well against all of those teams. And Arkansas, obviously, that's a rival game at the end of the year. That can go either way. We've historically had the edge. Arkansas is probably a little bit more talented this year, but like I said, rivalry, it could go either way. It's always going to be tight. I think we are a better team than Kansas State. The only thing is they have Deuce Vaughn, and have we like you said last year, the rushing attack? Have we fixed it? That's going to determine that game. And then Auburn, Florida, Tennessee. It's a combination of how are those teams going to look, because no one really knows. And it's also a combination of how well are we playing going into that. So I'll go 7 and 5 just because it would be kind of a miracle if we go 8 and 4. I'll go 7 and 5 with a bowl win though. So 8 and 5 overall total, and I think that would be I think Mizzou fans would accept that, especially because we have a fairly young team. So if we do that and then grow on it next year, then we're looking really good.
If we get 6 wins, like I said this year, then probably next year. So otherwise, he's probably just gone. So yeah. But yeah, that's Mizzou football. I can't wait. So we'll do.
I guess we can do our teams a little bit. You have North.
I'll do UNC. You do UA.
Wait, can I just do a quick? Because mine's going to be much quicker.
Okay.
I'll do UA.
I have a couple notes for UA as well, but I'll let you go first.
I have no notes, and it's because this team is sad. All right, we had the longest losing streak in the country. We went a whole season. We went 0-12, and then in the COVID year we went 0-6 or 0-8. However, we lost all the games, and we started off last year like 0-7, and then we finally won, beat California 13-10 in Arizona. And that was our only win on the year. So this team is just sad. But, Jed Fish, he's actually got some good recruiting options. And he's trying to make the team competitive at this point. The goal for the next few years is not to go out and compete with teams like USC and UCLA, and it's not to be on that level. It's to not be dead last and to beat Arizona State. That's really the only goals that we have. So I'd say 3 to 4 wins for this team would be really good. But if you don't have any interest in Arizona, then don't watch them, because it's just a terrible game to watch. So they do have
a really weird quarterback room though.
Yeah,
they just
horrible.
kind of they show flashes of like, oh, they're really good, but really they just suck. So
Yeah. So yeah, I think a little different than you. I think if you said we don't need to be competing with the USCs, I think you need to be at least in the games. Otherwise, I think Jed Fish, this is just his last year.
I'm not talking about like not compete. I'm talking about like in the record, like in the standings.
I
competing.
guess. But also this is still college football, even though Arizona does suck. You still have to, be like have a pulse in your conference. So I think if they don't actually win 4 games, he's just dead. Fish is just dead out of water, fish out of water, and he's just gone. My notes were they effing suck, and I just can't wait for NDSU to beat their brains in. No offense, Luke.
No,
my brother is a manager at NDSU, so
yeah, and they're also a really fun. We'll get into kind of like the FBS, FCS level, because there is an FCS team moving up to FBS level, but North Dakota State is a team that could instantly go in and compete, and they're coming to Arizona this year, and I think that's just going to be a sad scene, because it's just going to be sad.
North Carolina.
okay. Nobody listening gives a rat's ass about UNC except me, so I'll keep it short. But we have Josh Downs, a first-round talent at wide receiver, and he'll probably go to the draft this year, following the footsteps of De'Ami Brown and Daz Newsome and stuff like that, and probably go a little early, although Daz Newsome was a senior. But Ratliff Williams, he went early, so he'll probably go after this year, unless they are so good that they have a chance to compete for a title next year. Then he might come back, but I highly doubt that. Tony Grimes, future NFLer at DB, I'm wearing his jersey right now. This team has a ton of pros on it. Even if the record doesn't show it, they just keep getting like super, super high ranked prospects. They're just not developing them very well, but the NFL keeps drafting them and developing them in the league. So I think that might continue. I think this is the year, though. I'll give you a win total here. I think they can go at least 8-4, and I think they are going to go 8-4, but they can definitely go 9-3 as well. I could go on and on, as I know more about UNC than Mizzou, actually. But like I said, nobody really cares. But the big thing that I think people around the country and that are big college football fans are looking at is the quarterback competition. Mac Brown's quarterback competition between Drake May, who's a sophomore, and is the younger brother of Luke May, who hit the shot, they call it, against Kentucky in the Elite Eight to send North Carolina to the Final Four, where they ended up winning the national championship that year against Gonzaga. He was a big part of that team. And then Criswell, who I like a lot, out of Marilton, Arkansas, who was the Arkansas Gatorade Player of the Year. He's a junior. He's been waiting his turn patiently behind Sam Howell. He plays like Sam Howell, and personally, I want him to start because I just have a little bit of a softer spot for him, I think. But Luke May he was flipped from Alabama to North Carolina, so he may have a little more talent. So that's just one thing.
But Luke May you mean Marcus May?
Drake May, sorry.
Drake May?
Yeah, that's his name.
Who's Marcus May? There's a Marcus May, too.
I think he's a safety somewhere.
Okay.
But Luke May and Drake May. Drake May is the quarterback that I'm talking about. But, yeah. So, yeah, nobody really cares, but I do. And I will be watching them a lot.
No, you're right.
Including this Saturday.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Florida A&M, HBCU. So I like when they put HBCUs on the schedule because it just gives them some much needed shine. that they deserve. So Florida A&M versus at UNC for week 0 actually technically. But yeah, 7:00 ACC network.
So it's a fun. That's the reason why we're doing the college football preview, is because the first games are Saturday the 27th. But the first week is September 3rd would be the day, and that's when all the teams play. But it's kind of fun how they have a week 0 and they just have a few teams that go out there. Most of them are playing FCS schools, but I know that Nebraska and Northwestern are playing on Fox at 11:30. So that's kind of cool that they just hop right into conference play like that. And there's some other teams out there that are getting some shine. So it's just a fun atmosphere, on the week 0 to get some teams that maybe don't get. I know Vanderbilt's playing.
Yeah,
Hawaii.
I think
Like,
Tennessee's playing too. I can't remember if they are or not, but I know Vanderbilt's playing. So SEC football starts Saturday too. And like Luke just said, they actually have a Big Ten conference matchup, like he just said. So I can't remember if Purdue's playing week 1 or week 0 as well.
I don't think so. There's not like that many teams. North Carolina is one of them. Vanderbilt's the only SEC team, by the way.
Okay, so no Tennessee.
Yeah. But yeah, so that's it's just kind of a fun tidbit that college football does. It just gives us a little taste, a nice warm up.
And then
And
Thursday, I'll be
what the
going
people
to
need.
the first Mizzou game of the year as well. And then we just get going.
Yep.
Then September 3rd, let's ride pretty much. Russell Wilson, let's ride. Sitting on the couch all day.
Insert clip.
So yeah, cannot wait.
All right, you want
A little bit left, right?
So-
Teams that will surprise.
teams that will surprise? Okay, I have 3 on here. Now, granted, there's going to be way more than 3 teams that surprise. I have, as I said earlier, I'm a big fan of Baylor, and I think they're going to surprise. They're projected to be really good. I think they're going to be even better. I think they're going to be way better, and you'll see in a few minutes when we do the college football playoff that I have them in there. So I think they'll surprise. I also have Appalachian State out of the Sun Belt Conference. They're currently unranked, and they're not even receiving votes. And I think halfway through the year, they will change that. I think they'll probably be ranked because they're just a really good program. Actually, Coach Drink came from there. That's where he was before Mizzou as head coach, and he kind of helped establish the culture there. And they're just a really good team. And I think they're going to have some really big wins. I know they play North Carolina in week 2. And North Carolina's got to watch out for that. And if they get that win, I think they'll start getting some national attention. And then another team that I have that will surprise is James Madison. Now, the thing about James Madison is they're also in the Sun Belt with App State, but they were...
It's pronounced Fun Belt, but whatever.
Okay. Sun Belt, Fun Belt, whatever you want to call it. It's the same conference, different names. But Nebraska... Why did I say Nebraska? James Madison has been an FCS school for years, and they've been a top FCS school. Like we talk about North Dakota State being a dominant, James Madison is right there. When North Dakota State doesn't win the FCS championship, it's James Madison that wins it. So they've been a powerhouse at the FCS level, and they finally got enough money and to move conferences, and they actually moved up to the FBS level in college football, and I think they're going to just come out of nowhere and be really good this year. Now, they only play 11 games, which is weird, but I couldn't name a single player on their team, but they're just a team that no one thinks of because they just moved up. They're kind of forgotten because they're on the FCS level, and I think that they'll come to the Nationals, and I think they will be, they'll get 6 or 7, maybe 8 wins, and just be, they'll be instantly a what do you call it? The smaller conferences. They'll be a good team on the smaller conferences. So I think they'll surprise a lot.
My teams that will surprise, we talked about them actually a lot during the college football show today. Kansas State and Deuce Vaughn, I think they're going to surprise. And that's all I need to say because we've talked about them a lot. Utah, I think they're going to surprise. I think they're actually going to make the jump this year, and we'll talk about that here in a second. My sadly one is NC State. I think they're going to be either 10-2 or 11-1 heading into championship Saturday, including a win over North Carolina for the second straight year. in Keenan Memorial Stadium too, so that's going to hurt even more.
This is kind of ironic, your teams that you're naming, because you're literally just naming off my teams that will disappoint right now. So, funny enough. It's kind of ironic.
And then I also just put probably Michigan, honestly. They'll probably find a way to impress with Jim Harbaugh. And Nathan Crumb's coming back. And if Cade McNamara got any better, the defense is always solid. We know that about Michigan football. So they'll probably surprise. Yeah, I'll do my teams that will disappoint, and then you can do yours. I've talked about this a little bit, but I'm going to get into it again here. Mississippi State, year 3 of the air raid offense. It should work out well, but I just think the SC West is also like we've seen this offense for the past 2 years. It's also year 3 of defending the air raid offense for us, and this is the SEC West, not the Pac-12. And Mike Leach, I think, is just going to get shut down. So, and then he'll probably have to leave if they go like 2-10 or 3-9.
Mike Leach is a top 10 coach of all time, according to Nick Adams. So
Yeah,
we'll get to that.
We'll get into so yeah, and then teams that will disappoint. This is a college football tradition. Texas will, in my eyes. Washington, the University of Washington, another team that will just disappoint for the second year in a row. Nebraska is another team that will disappoint their fan base. Arizona, another team that was just going to be bad, I think, just really bad. And then I'm really worried about UCLA. I'm like a side UCLA fan. I just like their jerseys, and the Rose Bowl is my favorite. And I like Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think that's how you say his name. I can't remember. I really like him, but I just feel like I don't know if they're going to have enough. And I feel like they might disappoint and go like 7-5 and lose some really close games to like USC and shit like that, which is going to really hurt them. So, yeah, those are my teams that will disappoint, sadly.
I know you said Arizona on your teams that will disappoint, but it's hard to disappoint a fan base that has no expectations whatsoever. So the only expectation is to compete against Arizona State and not get blown out 70-7. My teams that will disappoint, I have BYU on here. People are really high on BYU, and I think they're a solid team. But if you look at their schedule, it's kind of a gauntlet, which sets up where if they play really good, they're going to be high in the rankings. But I think they're going to disappoint. I think they're going to lose a lot more games than people think, and they'll probably finish like 6-6 or 7-5. And then I have two other teams, Utah and NC State, which are both on your team's a little surprise. But partly it's my hate for Utah. I just never really like them. They did play a really good game in the Rose Bowl last year, but I just don't see the thing that clicks that takes them to the next level. They will be a top team in the Pac-12. I think they'll be, really good team. Impossible to beat for Arizona, but I just don't see him being that title, the playoff contender type level this year. I think they'll take a step back from what they did last year. Ollie's about to get ejected too. Holy crap. And NC State is my other one. And I just think that people are so high on them this year, and you're really close, being a rival, North Carolina, of them. NC State is just – I think their expectations are too high, and they have a good quarterback, but holy crap, this is intense. Look at this. Man, we got to pause the football talk for this. This is amazing. Another ump has had to interfere. Oh, ump's holding Ollie back. Skip Schumacher has to go take Ollie out. Wow. Unbelievable. Let's go. That was some big energy there from Ollie. We can cut that part if you want to. Kind of interrupted the flow of what we had here, but that was just Skip Schumacher's the manager now, I guess, for the rest of the day. All right, back to NC State. Like you said, you thought they could be 11-1 or 10-2 by the time the season, like the end of the season rolls around. I think that's way unrealistic. I think they will be a top team in that side of the ACC with Clemson, but I just don't think they're on that level yet. They're probably like a 20 to 25 ranked team in the nation. You know, they're good, but I think they're just going to disappoint their fans who have a lot of expectations for them this year.
That's another thing. I just hate their fans. They are the absolute worst. They're like, oh, is that a Nolan bomb? No. Okay, it's in the park. But anyway, their fans are like Duke basketball, but for football. And they're just UNC fans just live in their head rent free, and it's really sad. In fact, they actually got a player that they were in a recruiting battle with UNC with a consensus 3-star, borderline 4-star wide receiver named Kevin Conception. And he committed to NC State, and the only thing that they would tweet was not about how excited they were Kevin. It was just that they took him over North Carolina. And that's just when you know that they are just living in their head rent free. And they are just really annoying online. So it just adds to the hate. And they absolutely shattered my heart last year. So it hurts a little bit more seeing them at the top. But I'm happy that they're on your teams that will disappoint. Because I have them on my teams that will surprise. And I don't want to be right. I actually want you to be right on this one. So I hope that they just fall flat on their face because it would be incredibly funny. And it would actually be a lot like North Carolina last year, who was also projected to be like number 10 in the preseason, and then they went 6-7. So I kind of hope that happens to NC State this year, but probably won't. So.
Another team I could add to my surprise would be Nebraska, though. If they do end up winning like I predicted, it would definitely be a surprise.
Also,
like I said, I wasn't strong on that prediction. So.
I think UCF could actually be good again this year. Gus Malzahn has been there for a while, and they've had some really good recruits come in lately and some good transfers. So I think they might actually be a team to reckon with in the Power 6 American Conference. So we'll see about that. They might just be a team that surprises. But yeah,
it's always good when UCF's fun.
Yeah, the bounce house.
Yeah. You want to go to the last thing we have of the college football preview?
What about locks?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
And then I still have to do the playoffs.
Okay, so not last thing. I'm just an idiot. So we have betting locks. So basically what me and Cam did is you went to a website called...
While you explain this, I'm going to go to the bathroom.
All right. So we went to a website called Vegas Insider, and it says 2022 college football win totals odds. So basically it has every single team in college football FBS level, which adds up to about roughly 125 teams. And it has the Vegas betting line for their win totals on the year. So, like, for example, I'm looking South Carolina's is 6, Penn State's is 8.5, Ohio is 5.5, Kentucky's 8, Hawaii's 4.5. That's the betting lines for what Vegas has for their win totals on the year. So basically what me and Cam did is we went through that list and we picked some of the things that some of the bets we thought would be locks. Like, has to happen. Has to happen. There's no way it doesn't. I have about 15 or so. Cam's got about 9 or 10. So if you are a big bettor, which in Missouri, that's really tough if you are because obviously it's not legal here in the state of Missouri. But if you're a nearby state like Kansas or Oklahoma, or not Oklahoma, Illinois, or maybe some other states, you might want to listen up if you want to bet on win totals. Even though me and Cam are not big bettors, which actually might come into play, because sometimes big bettors are the ones that are wrong, and the guys who just know football end up being right. So I actually am looking at this right now, and I'm going to add a few to my list. There's just so many that I'm so confident on. So I'll let you go first.
Okay. My one total locks, I threw in a Maction one just for fun. Akron over 2.5. I didn't even take a look at their schedule. I don't have to. Akron helmet, and they play in Maction, so it's hard not to win 3 games. If they play an FCS school and win a crazy Maction game and then win like a home rivalry game or something like that, boom, 3. So I think that's a decent bet. I have USC under 9.5 as Kisner gets hit in maybe the nuts and his career might be over. But anyway, USC under 9.5. I think Caleb Williams and Lincoln Riley it's just not going to be, an electric factory, so to speak, this year. I think they'll probably go 8-4. That's why I have them at under 9.5. Ohio State over 10.5. I think that's pretty much just a lock. Don't really have to go into that, especially with the division. Not the division, sorry. They're just so good. OK State over 8.5. So I think they'll win 9. UNC over 7.5. I think this is the year they go 8-4. So I would take that. Mizzou over 5.5 because I think they're going to win at least 6 games. James Madison under 6.5. I think they'll win 6, and they only play 11 games, so they kind of have the short end of the stick there. Bama over 10.5 is another big lock, and then Kansas State over 6.5 because I have them all the way in the Big 12 title game. So yeah, my lock. I've talked about a bunch of them. Bama. One thing I'm confused about, Luke, is does this count like championship games and playoff games, or does this only count regular season?
Total win.
Because how do they only set the line at 10.5 for Bama?
I have them on my over as well. That was literally the first one I put down was Bama over 10.
The same with Ohio State. I don't understand how they can only be 10.5 because, I mean, unless chaos ensues like last year, I mean, they're probably going to play in the Big Ten title game and then the playoffs. So that's guaranteed 2 extra games at least you get to play.
Yeah, you have 12 regular season games. If you make the conference championship, that's 13. And then college football playoff, that's 14. If you make the championship, that's 15 games. Mm-hmm. And so to think that Bama or Ohio State is not going to win 11 games, I think is insane. I think those both are locks. So I agree with you completely on that. Also, Kisner just got some batter just literally hit him straight in the elbow with the bat when he was swinging. So
yeah, not the nuts. That's good.
Stay in the game though.
All right, you can rattle yours off, I guess, if you want.
Okay. So I have the Bama 10.5. Coastal Carolina, I have over 8. That's a tough one because it's high. It's gonna, they're gonna have to play really well. I have Iowa State over 6.5. I don't remember if you had that one on there or not, but I would imagine since you had them playing in the conference championship that you'd like to take that bet as well.
Yeah, I'll just imaginary add that one to my card.
Okay.
Because I literally have them in the Big 12 title game with Kansas State. So
yeah, I mean, I saw that one. I was like, they may not like make the title game, but there's no way they don't win 6 and they don't win 7 games because something you have to take in with these bets too is that there's 12 regular season games, and if you win 6, you're going to get a bonus one with a bowl game. Mm-hmm. And so there's no way they don't win 6 and not get a bowl game. And then so if it's 6, then they have another chance to get to 7 with the bowl game. So I'd see that. I also have Missouri over 5.5. I have San Jose State with the under 6.5. I thought that was incredibly high. They were one of the worst teams in all of college football last year. And to think that now it's at 6.5. Now they did improve a little bit, but that it's under 6.5 isn't 6.5 is the line. That's definitely under. I have Pitt under 8.5. They're going to fall off big time without Kenny Pickett, and the one Jordan Addison is his name. Went to USC. Without those two, I think they can almost be on the team disappoint as well. I think Vegas is expecting people to they're fooling people with this one. They're like, 8.5. Pitt was good last year. They're going to be good this year. No, take the under.
I think they did that, honestly, because they've had a quarterback, I think that transferred in. I can't remember, blanking on his name. And then they still have a good defense. Like, they didn't lose a bunch of pieces on defense. So I think that's maybe what Vegas might be betting on. But I would actually, I would take that bet as well. I don't think they're going to win the Coastal. So, yeah.
Then this one is a little bit of a petty pick, but Utah under 9. kind of a risky one, but at the same time, if they get 9 wins, then you split your money, you get your money back that you bet. So it's a no-lose situation there. That's something you also have to take into account with just the whole numbers, not 0.5s, is that you can tie as well. So it's kind of a win as well if they hit, 9. I have Oregon over 8.5. I have Ohio State over 10.5. I have Northern Illinois, a little bit of a action there, over 6.5. This one might be one of my top locks other than Alabama and Ohio State. Because
They do that every year. I can't believe that 6.5.
I know.
Also, shout out Mark Hensley, my friend Mark Hensley, who
Committed.
to Northern Illinois. So, yeah, they played in the Maction title game last year, I think.
Yeah, this is one of my most, like, if I bet on sports, I would bet this one with a lot of money because I was looking at their schedule before I made this pick. They play 3 FCS schools and then Maction schedule. So the 3 FCS schools should be, locks because they're not like, I forget who they were, but they weren't like some of the top FCS schools. Should be locks. And then anything can happen in Maction. And the fact that they have 8 conference games plus a bowl game probably, to think that they wouldn't win at least 4 of those games is insane to me. So that's definitely a lock. That's one of my favorite locks. Then I have New Mexico State over 3. It's a funny one, but they're a really bad team, but I don't think they're quite that bad. And they also play teams. They have UConn on their schedule, and they have UMass on their schedule, and those teams are like they're the pig pen, the shit pen of the college football world. So
that's another thing is I wonder if they're playing the Cum Bowl this year.
They might. But so to think that they're not going to win those 2 games, and then if they win another one, hey, guess what? It's a tie of 3, and then who knows about the 4th one. So lock it in, New Mexico State over 3.
Don't just type in Cum Bowl on your computer.
Oh.
I just did that, and it's just bad.
Yeah,
So
I could have told you that. And then Liberty over 6.5. It's kind of a risky one considering they lose Malik Willis, but looking at their schedule, which I did before I made this, I'm very confident in the Liberty over pick. UConn under 2.5. Now I'm pretty sure 2.5 is the lowest that Vegas can go because they had teams like Vanderbilt, Akron, UConn. They were all at 2.5. And UConn is, like I said, they're the backwash of college football. They're the lowest of low. It's a sad program, and they're either going 0-12 or 1-11. And with the off chance that they go 2-12 or 2-10, it's still the under. So lock it in under for UConn. And then BYU under 8.5. I talked about that earlier. And then one that I just added looking at it was South Carolina over 6. It's a lock. I see no 6 is what you have to get a bowl game. I see no scenario in which South Carolina does not play in a bowl game. So it's at least a tie on that one. I think you're safe.
Just an update. They do play the Cum Bowl this year.
Okay.
UMass at Connecticut, November 4th at 6 p.m., which is kind of weird that they already have a time for that one. Usually all the times are TBD, but yeah, we will have that one. So that's just like the battle of the worst teams ever in the entire world. So yeah, mark your calendars.
It's literally like Jaguars playing the Texans, but worse, like on steroids, because those are at least NFL teams and they have some competence to them. Like these are literally just random football players that are going there for an academic scholarship. Like they don't even like football that much. They're just playing because they have to. So yeah, I guess we'll check in on these picks a little bit through the year, see how they're doing. I had 15. So I will either have a winning record or a losing record.
Yeah. And that just leaves our last thing for football, college football, is playoff predictions. And
For the playoffs.
Yeah, for the playoffs. And so my 4 are Bama 1, Ohio State 2, Clemson 3, Utah 4. So I've been riding Utah. I'm going to continue to, and same with Clemson. I think they're back. And like I said earlier, I mentioned it briefly, I'm back on the DJ Ugalugale train. I'll just never forget that game against Notre Dame when he threw for like 400 yards and they lost while Trevor Lawrence was out with COVID, but he stood on the sideline the whole game. So that was a weird COVID thing.
Yeah,
But
So there's like literally a picture of them showing the graphic that's like Trevor Lawrence
out
tested
with
positive for
COVID.
COVID.
He's just standing next to all the players with his mask like under his nose.
Yeah, he's like talking to him, and he's got his mask pulled down, talking to him while he has COVID. It's just one of the funniest graphics ever. I'll try to find it, put it in the YouTube. It was so funny. Mine is Alabama 1, Ohio State 2. Then I also have Clemson at 3. I just think they're going to be back. And then I hinted to it earlier, alluded to it. Baylor 4. The 4th spot is really up for grabs. There could be teams like Utah. A lot of people are riding on Utah this year. Georgia is obviously going to be in contention. I just think they're taking a step back from last year. Baylor, I'm riding high on them. I'm so excited to see what Baylor does this year. I think they're one of the most underrated teams in football. I didn't put them on my locks though, however, but I'll you know what? I'll do it right now. Baylor, whatever it is, Baylor over 7.5. That's laughable. I'm adding that to my locks. Take it back. I have 16 locks. Baylor over 7.5. Are you serious right now? How do they not win 8 games? I see no world in which they do not win 8 games because 12 regular season games, they're going to play in a conference title, and then they're going to have a bowl game. That's 14 games. How do they not win 8?
Yeah.
How do they not win 8?
I think they're just betting on them not being as good as they were last year.
Even
Luke
though
is
they're
betting
better,
on them.
I'm betting on them being better. Even making the college football playoff, which they honestly had a chance to last year. They just Alabama won in the SEC championship and kicked them out. So
I guess another thing here is that our playoffs are actually pretty boring in terms of they are the same kind of prediction every single year, except everybody had Georgia in theirs last year. But we both have one surprise team, so as are Luke's. So yeah,
shout out Param Crow there.
shout out Param Crow, love him. But yeah, that's pretty much our college football preview show. We do have one Nick Adams debacle update. And honestly,
Tom Brady situation, or
oh shit, yeah.
This is a long show, but I'll put timestamps on it in case you want to skip some of the college football stuff. Tom Brady. So basically, there was a UFC fight night last night, and was it Joe Rogan or Dana White? Dana White. Mm-hmm. They looked the same, but Dana White was basically being interviewed by a bunch of people, and Gronk was one of them that was like in the interview section or whatever. He's like, Gronk, you almost went to Oakland. He's like, I was initiating a deal, or not Oakland, Las Vegas, the Raiders. He's like, you almost went to the Raiders, and Gronk's like, what? He's like, yeah, I was actually trying to get Tom and you to sign with the Raiders, and everything was set in stone. The Raiders were for it. Tom was for it. And at the last second, like they had all the details organized. They were getting ready to announce it to the meeting. At the last second, Gruden was like, actually, I don't want to do the deal anymore. And so, yeah, Tom Brady and Gronk were almost Buccaneers. Or Raiders. They were Buccaneers.
Yeah.
They were almost Raiders.
And I think it was funny because Dana White was like, Gronk, am I really about to tell this story live on television? And Gronk's like, yes, just go for it. You don't have to use every single detail in the world, but just go for it. And he just told everybody. And so what this helped us come to the conclusion of is when Tom Brady was on that, I think it's a show called The Shop or something like that, or maybe I think that's what it is. It's just like we're a podcast where a bunch of athletes come together and talk. They basically were talking about Tom's free agency, and there's that, world-renowned viral clip where Tom Brady's talking about where he pretty much just says, they wanted that motherfucker over me, and then that's why he signed with the Buccaneers. Talking about John Gruden wanting on the hot seat now, if you ask me, Derek Carr over Tom Brady, because Gruden had just like a love affair for Derek Carr over the years. So now we know who he was talking about. I think me and Luke both thought over the past couple of years that they were just talking about Tua because we thought he was going to be
The
a
Dolphins rumors.
Dolphin instead of a Raider. But now we know that Tom Brady was really talking about Derek Carr, that he was shocked that John Gruden wanted Derek Carr over Tom Brady. So here we are, years later, year 3 for Tom Brady as a Buccaneer.
Yeah, kind of a funny story there that could have altered the NFL, really. So John Gruden once again leaving his mark. You want to get it? So we have some follow-ups from last week. I have my first one. I said I was getting the Bader cut, kiss it goodbye to my hair, and I'm wearing a hat because it just looks so weird. But I'll for the YouTube viewers, I'll pull it off for a second. I got the Bader cut. I went through with my word. Cam called me a hero. But yeah, just following through with my word here. And then Cam has his follow-up too.
Okay. It's been a week. It's been a long week on Twitter, honestly. This has kind of been an exhausting thing to have to do, but I did do it. We're talking about the Nick Adams debacle here. And officially, after a full week of review, I am 100% out on Nick Adams. I'm out on Nick Adams. A crazy week that just involved Nick Adams replying to my own tweet, then deleting it after he replied. And at the moment he replied, I was just thrilled that I was like, I'm in on Nick Adams. I was all in on Nick Adams. In fact, I was putting pulled pork in the oven when it happened, and when it came across my screen, and I just screamed, and my dog was just like looking at me. But he did end up deleting it, so I came back down to earth. And at the end of the day, it was just too much of an uphill climb in terms of horrible sports takes. Now, we've come to some conclusions this week about Nick Adams, though. He does base a lot of his tweets off of players' Christian faith, their American patriotism, if they're pro-Trump or not. And that's basically kind of what he just based his
And then if they're
viewings
white.
on. And if they're white.
They're a
most
white
of the
male.
time. Even if they're black, if they like act like they're white, then he also really likes that. So I did pull up some review tweets that kind of just left me to making my final decision, and some of them are just kind of sad, honestly, how bad the takes are. Let's see here. What's a good one to start with? Okay, yeah. Greatest fourth quarter quarterbacks of all time. Number 1, Tom Brady, which is right. Number 2, Tim Tebow. And then he kind of just goes down the list. And at number 10, he has Bernie Kosar as well on that list. So that was one tweet that was kind of just out there. He also said, happy 35th birthday to Timothy Joseph Tebow, and the entire Denver Broncos fan base would kill to have a quarterback like Tim Tebow on their roster right now over Pro Bowler and future Hall of Famer Russell Wilson.
Well, to be fair to Nick Adams on that tweet, maybe a year ago or just even a few months ago.
But we're talking about today.
I know, but just a few months ago, some fans probably would have killed that quarterback like Tim Tebow on their team. But today, there's no chance. There is not a Broncos fan that would want that to happen, much less kill for it. So.
Mm-hmm. And then this one was honestly one that sealed the deal, and it was also the very first one that I pulled up. Like, this happened all the way back on August 17th. Top 5 3-point shooters in NBA history. Pistol Pete Maravich. Now, this one is interesting because Luke pointed out to me earlier, and I didn't even take note to this. There wasn't even a 3-point line for a good chunk of Pete Maravich's career.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how that could be possible. Kyle Korver. Now, this one is interesting because he actually is like an all-time 3-point specialist. But number 2, you got to keep in mind who he's keeping off this list. Mark Price at number 3. Dirk Nowitzki, which is a good pick. And then I can't even say this guy's name. Pia Stojakovic.
Peja Stojkovic.
Okay. And then he has some honorable mentions: Ray Allen, Jason Capono, Steve Nash, Jerry Lucas, Larry Bird, which was shocking to me that he left him off the list, and Reggie Miller, because Larry Bird's white. And then if you're wondering who I'm thinking he may have left off, maybe the actual 3-point specialist king, Steph Curry. Not even in the honorable mentions. So yeah, it was just a week of Nick Adams tweets that he also made multiple Urban Meyer comments
Oh my
about
goodness.
why he should still be in the league and how he's one of the greatest coaches of all time. Hell, he even put out a list of his top 10 coaches of all time. Bill Belichick 1, Lou Holtz 2, number 3, Urban Meyer. He also has
He was a
Tommy
good
Tuberville. He was, but he's considering him an NFL coach that should have a job, no questions asked. Tommy Tuberville at 7, and he even threw in Jack Del Rio as the top 10 coaches of all time at number 10. Jack Del Rio, the current defensive coordinator for the Washington football team / Commanders, who got absolutely shredded this week by woke Mahomes. But according to Nick Adams, the reason why they got shredded by woke Mahomes is because Ron Rivera has too much control over the team. So not giving enough to Jack Del Rio, a true American patriot who's pro-Trump. And like I said last week, this has nothing to do with political views. These views are just sad.
We're not commenting on Nick Adams' political, just simply on his sports takes, because he seems to have a lot of them and be very passionate about them.
Yeah.
So,
Also, while not caring about professional sports at the same time, he also tweets about it like every other.
yeah, he also has a tweet that like when players started kneeling for the anthem, I stopped caring about sports, but still tweets about. He still has about 10 tweets about sports every day. So I think some things that we learned, like you said, the 3 things he bases his sports take off of are those 3 that you listed earlier. But he also has, it's kind of like Derek Carr or John Gruden with Derek Carr. He has a weird obsession with Tim Tebow, like as a baseball player and football player. And Tim Tebow was one of the best college football quarterbacks of all time. But there's a reason he didn't play in the NFL for a long, long time, and a reason why he never made the major leagues. He's a very good guy, off the field. He's a great human being, but at the same time, like his obsession with him is just weird at the same time. So
yeah, for a guy who is very anti-gay, he has like a little gay on relationship for Tim Tebow, which we're not against that, but he is. So that's kind of a contradiction on Nick Adams.
something to point out.
So yeah, we're out on Nick Adams. It's over. I'm gonna finally turn off the ring notification for his tweets, and I'm glad that that's over.
So yeah,
Nice little follow up there from
Yeah,
last episode. I think that's going to be pretty much
yeah,
our show.
that's our show. We're gonna skip wheel spins this week.
Yeah, we'll just do like 8 or 9 next week.
Yeah.
Just pile them
Yeah,
up. But this is probably by far our longest show.
Yep.
I would say. I guess we could do a little bit of a Cardinals recap, which is literally just them being good and Pujols being amazing. He's hit 5 home runs this week, and he moves to 692 all time. So he's now 8 away from 700. So that's a watch that you want to keep. Keep the 700 watch. Swept the Rockies 1-2 against the Diamondbacks. That's about it. Goldie and Arenado are amazing. And also the greatest video I think I've ever seen has surfaced. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but it's the video of the cardinal bird, and he's smoking a cigar, and like there's just music like ha ha ha. Damn, ha ha ha. Damn, ha ha. Such an amazing video. So my new favorite video, regardless to say, has come out of the Cardinals Twitter this week. And that's about it. That's our show. If you're not a college football fan, I'm sorry, but excited for it to start. And we just had, I think, probably the best college football preview episode you're ever going to get. So
yeah, and
especially as a Mizzou fan.
If you're not a college football fan, just grow up. I mean, come on. This is America at its finest when we're playing college football every Saturday. Fans packing stands, tailgating, eating food that will take years off your life, drinking cold drinks, watching America's game, football, all that. So, this is why God made America. things like this. Football.
Man.
Also, Pittsburgh Pirates record is a palindrome right now, 47-74.
How
So
about
yeah,
that?
I'm gonna leave you with that. That's the show.
That's an interesting fact there in the show, Pittsburgh Pirates record, because so many people care about it. So yeah, once again, if you're not a college football fan, I'm sorry, but if you are, I don't think you're gonna get a better review. I will go on record saying that. I don't think you'll get a better recap of the total landscape of college football. You know, maybe if you want to go in depth about certain teams, you're gonna get that somewhere else. But yeah, make sure you if you know college football fans, make sure you give them a word about this episode to tune into it. And make sure, like I said before, make sure to check the description for timestamps, because if there's something you don't want to listen to, if you want to skip over a certain part of the show and listen to another one, check the description and then skip to that part, that timestamp. But with that being said, thank you for tuning in. If you're still here listening to this, thank you, because that means you're a dedicated listener. Listening to a 2-hour plus show, whether it was consecutively or if you had to break it up, thank you. You're a true listener. You are a plus listener. Hall of Fame of Show Me Show listeners. If you're still here at this point in time, and I hope you guys have a great week and enjoy college football this week.
Yeah, and also good luck to us as we begin our college academic careers as well. So to all the other students out there, good luck. You might even be listening to this while you're studying. So
or while you're on your drive on the way to school. So
yeah, or while you're getting ready for school. So yeah,
while you're preparing for college football, etc.
Yeah.
Regardless, thank you, and have a great week, and we'll see you next week with a little bit more of a normal show. So
yep. See ya.
Peace out.